We turn our attention to the wide receiver position as we continue our preparation for the 2021 NFL Draft. Now we're joined by Shaun O'Hara. I am John Schmeelk. Shawnee, I'm taking you outside the trenches here, man. It's time to talk about some of the pretty boys out there. You ready?
Yeah, absolutely. Johnny, I kind of have different names for them. I call them wide divas, but I tell you, I love my skinny wide receivers out there that every once in a while come in and dig out a safety. So they play a big role.
Well, Shaun, here's the thing I like about this class, though. At the top of this class, I don't think we have any divas. I really don't. Talk about this group at the top that you really like.
Yeah, I mean, really, this group of receivers, you know, they definitely bring a lot to the table, and you don't see as much of the showmanship as maybe you have in the past with some of the guys. But you know, when you look at the group, the top three really, Ja'Marr Chase, DeVonta Smith, and Jaylen Waddle, they kind of, I feel like as you look at everybody's boards and where everybody starts off with, those three guys are kind of in a class all their own. Ja'Marr Chase obviously opts out last year, so he doesn't have any game footage from 2020. You go back to 2019, John, and I mean, he led the FBS with 20 touchdowns, and he and Joey Burrow were, an unbelievable pitch and catch combination. So just a phenomenal catch radius with this guy. I mean, look, you can put the ball anywhere. He's going to make a ridiculous circus catch. He's got great body control with the ball in the air, and whether he's got to turn around or jump over somebody or make a one-hand catch. The hands, you know, just kind of like they're like mitts going up, and they just kind of engulf the ball. DeVonta Smith, when you look at his production, I mean, it's phenomenal when you look at his numbers and what he's done. I think, you know, when you look at the records that he set a record in the SEC for single yards in a season as well as throughout his career. So the production is there. Think about the receivers that have come through Alabama, and yet this guy has records there. 46 career touchdowns. That's an SEC record. So just an unbelievable production. You mentioned the mindset and the team player. This guy was a two-time captain at Alabama, which is not something that happens very frequently down there. And Nick Saban went on record and said this kid's the hardest worker on the team, and that's the kind of guy that you're getting with DeVonta Smith. I know a lot of people get caught up on the numbers, John, and his size, and you know that he's 165 pounds, whatever that is. But you know that kind of production, you can't ignore, and I think you have to just look at, man, well, how does he still find a way to get it done? And he plays so much bigger than his numbers tell you and his frame. And John, I tell you, he's not scared to block. Whether it's asking him to block somebody at the line of scrimmage, whether you're asking him to come in and dig out a safety in an 8-man box, or whether he's out blocking another corner or safety on a screen to spring his fellow wide receiver, which he did a couple times for Henry Ruggs a couple years ago. He's more than willing to do that. So right out of the gate, Ja'Marr Chase, DeVonta Smith, the production is there. And then you've got Jaylen Waddle. Jaylen Waddle obviously fractured his ankle last year, so he missed some time. But I think he brings a little something different to the table than DeVonta Smith in that he is just unbelievably dangerous after the catch. And if you're a team right now, you're a team like the Giants, looking for some production offensively, you know, any of these guys would give that to you. Jaylen Waddle, the thing about him, you know, that dangerous after the catch ability, a lot of that translates to the fact that he's a returner. And so there's another feather in his cap. You get a kid like him, and he can return kickoffs, he can return punts, he can help you out in special teams as well.
Now, based on how the top 10 in this draft is probably going to go, Shaun, I'm going to throw Ja'Marr Chase and Kyle Pitts, who I know is a tight end, but in that playmaking category. I'm throwing them out the window here. They're not going to make it to 11. Let's say, though, something weird happens. Maybe, Micah Parsons moves up, 5 quarterbacks go, a bunch of offensive linemen go, and the Giants actually have both DeVonta Smith and Jaylen Waddle on the board at 11. In terms of the Giants' makeup on the roster, the way Jason Garrett runs his offense, which one of those guys you think would be a better fit with the rest of this Giants wide receiver core?
Yeah, it'd be a good problem to have, John, if both those guys are sitting there. And, while I do think the Giants are okay at wide receiver right now, I don't think they need to draft a receiver in the first round. If those guys are sitting there, I don't know how you pass on them. I would definitely be intrigued with Jaylen Waddle. And I think the returnability definitely that hits home with you. I mean, look, he led the FBS as a punt returner in 2019, over 24 yards a return. I mean, that's game changing. That's flipping the field literally every time he fields a punt. So that aspect is big. I think, just looking at the Giants, like, okay, what do we have? Kenny Golladay, you've got your big physical receiver. You've got Sterling Shepard in the slot, who's a physical guy. You've got Darius Slayton, who is your burner and your speedster. But you have a guy that can take an X now, a quick bubble throw, and make two guys miss and just create that instant offense. I think that's what Jaylen Waddle would bring to the table. And I think the Giants would be extremely excited if he was there at 11.
Yeah, they don't have someone you can just dump the ball to on a screen and then he's going to go gain 70 yards. Not named Saquon Barkley. Barkley can do it, but nobody in the receiver core.
Yeah.
And I think, Shaun, it's interesting too, how much of this is dependent, and you talk about need, right, with wide receiver, and I agree, you sign Kenny Golladay, you don't have a gaping hole there that you need to fill. And how much do you take in consideration how you think Joe Judge and Jason Garrett want this offense to look? How do they want it to function? Is it going to be, let's limit Daniel Jones to 25 to 30 passes and we'll run it 30 to 35 times a game? How do you think they want this offense to look in the context of wanting to add another big-time playmaker wide receiver to make things easier on your quarterback?
I think it's a run-first mentality offensively. I don't think they want Daniel Jones throwing the ball 45 times a game. And I don't think that's in Daniel's best interest either. And I think he would probably tell you that. Like, he's got a great deep ball. I think when he's got a chance to set his feet, step into throws, he's as accurate as anybody in the NFL. And I do think that with his athletic ability, to be able to build some of those big throws and those big chunks out of play action is huge. And you get him outside of the pocket, you get him working some RPOs. I think that really all just blends well together. So you definitely need some guys that can create some space and separation and yards after the catch. But I don't get the feeling this is like the Kansas City Chiefs offense where we're going to spread you out and we're going to, open things up by running vertical routes.
So then that makes you think maybe wide receiver not in the first round. But, Shaun, the good news is that the draft is more than one round. So the Giants can always go back to that position later. And much like each of the last 3 years worth of receiver classes, it's a pretty deep wide receiver class too. So who are some of the guys that you like maybe on day 2 that intrigue you?
Yeah, it is a deep class. And, I think, man, even in the second round, you get some phenomenal athletes and some guys that really have some natural ability. One of the guys that jumped out at me on film was Kadarius Toney, the wide receiver down in Florida. I know Kyle Pitts, their tight end, is getting all kinds of love and everybody's drooling over him and what he can bring to the offense. But if you're watching film on Kyle Pitts, you're going to see this kid, number one, and you're going to say, who is this guy? I mean, and he was probably one of the toughest tackles in all of college football the last couple of years. And when you see some of the plays, not just the speed that he has once he has the ball in his hand, but his ability to set corners up, whether he's in the slot, whether he's outside, he's got these simple little feints and kind of body gestures that, he just really shakes himself open. It's really a skill set, and I think he's so smooth with it. Look, it helps that he ran a 4.37 40, so he's got electric speed. They used him on jet sweeps, they used him on screens, they used him in play action down in Florida. So I think Kadarius Toney, there's a chance he may not get out of the first round, but if he's there in the second round, to your point, he's a guy that I could see them jumping all over. Rondale Moore, the wide receiver out of Purdue, this is another tough kid. And you watch him play with the stiff arm and fighting through tackles, bouncing off of guys. He kind of reminds you of Steve Smith, the wide receiver down in Carolina for a number of years, with just kind of this ferocious mindset when he catches the ball or when he's fighting for the ball. So he's a very physical guy. I think he blew people away with his personal workout. He ran a 4.3 140, jumped through the roof. This he's really strong. At 5'7", you can call him vertically challenged, but he's a guy that, I think would be a steal in the second round.
And we're going to stick with the same theme. Shaun, all about the Lilliputians this year. Who's your sleeper for day 3?
Every year there's a couple of guys that, maybe you end up being a 4th-round pick, 5th-round pick, 6th-round pick. And, they just kind of, it's like people are always going to ask after the draft, man, how did that guy make it that far in the draft? And for me, it's Jaylen Waddle, the little wide receiver out of North Texas. I think he's probably the shiftiest wide receiver in college football the last couple of years. He can get free in a phone booth, John. I mean, this guy with the defenders literally right there trying to grab him, like he would be a star in flag football. You wouldn't be able to touch the flag, let alone tackle the guy. So you just watch what he's able to do, even in limited space. He's got unbelievable cuts, his shiftiness, his acceleration. He had one of the fastest 10-yard dashes. I know we all focus on the 40. His 10-yard split was either, if not the second fastest, it was the second or third fastest in this entire receiving group. So his acceleration and his burst is phenomenal. He set a record at North Texas for receiving yards. And, look, the kid's motivated. He plays tough too. So I think for the Giants, that could end up being a really cool pickup. It's kind of like the signing that they had this offseason with John Ross, who did everything, was ridiculous after the catch. His only knock was he's never been healthy. Since he showed up in Cincinnati, he was banged up from his rookie year to his last year. And, I look at Jaylen Waddle and I see some similar qualities there. So he could be somebody that man, I tell you what, Giants fans he would be that instant legend in training camp, John. Every year you go out there and somebody wows the crowd. Hopefully we have a crowd this year in training camp, but he would become an instant legend in training camp.
Yeah, you mentioned his explosiveness and his short area quickness, a 6.67 3-cone drill, which I think is in the 96th percentile of all wide receivers in the last 35 years. So, yeah, needless to say, the guy's elusive. And much like you mentioned with Jaylen Waddle, he's a return man, too. So you want to use him on special teams, little punt return action. Very, very difficult to catch. Shaun, great stuff on the wideouts, my friend. We appreciate it as always.
Thanks, Johnny.
For Shaun O'Hara, I'm John Schmeelk. We continue to look at the 2021 NFL Draft on all of our digital platforms.